Or the internet's full of snake oil salespeople, full of people that are influencers telling you, hey, you can make money with nothing. How do you create that passive income, whether it's with real estate or whatever it might be? But especially if you're looking to create passive income in real estate, here's the problem. Most of them aren't passive. I know it's a shocker, but most of those people telling you can take $2,000 and make $1 million are full of crap. Now they're doing it legitimately, possibly, but it's not passive. They're either going to have a brand new business you have to do, Amazon business, whatever it might be. I want to just dispel that myth, get rid of that there, and then help you understand how you can truly make passive income. In fact, I'm going to give you my 5 favorite ways of creating true passive income right here. All right, so as I said, passive income is something that you're exchanging money for, not time and energy, right? Just remember, when you see those real estate influencers, they're usually flippers, they're flipping properties, they're usually wholesalers, where they're basically being a middle person between the buyer and the seller. They have a legitimate business, and they can make millions and millions of dollars, but not for 1 second ever believe that it's passive. It's never passive in those situations. So these are the passive ones that I've used. Number 1, turnkey real estate. Now, if you watch other videos I've done as well, turnkey real estate investing is simply this. It's not buying a rental in your backyard. Turnkey real estate is where you have a real estate company that's called a turnkey company. They help you find the property. They help you know how much money you're going to make on that property before you even buy it. And then from there, they're going to help you get the financing if you need the bank financing through a mortgage or whatever it might be. And then they're going to property manage, or they're going to connect you with a property manager to do that for you. So you are really hands off. You are not the one doing the investments. You're not the one doing that property. You are the one that's actually letting them do the work. Now, is it possible you could get involved? Yes. I'll tell you firsthand, turnkey real estate is not always passive. There have been times I've had to step in because I had a bad property manager. There's times I've had to make decisions. Sometimes the property manager will reach out and say, hey, we just want to reach out to see if you're okay with this, with the rent of the tenant. Like maybe we're going to raise the rent or not. By the way, I love when they disrupt me for that. Like say, hey, we're going to raise the rent this next year. Are you cool with that? Yes, I am. I'm totally cool with that. And so that's one of the beautiful things about having a property manager. You don't deal with the tenants, the toilets, or the trash. You get to be hands off. You do finance it. You are ultimately responsible for it, but you have a real tangible asset that not only makes cash flow, makes passive income, but there's an additional growth component on it, because if you have a mortgage on it, 1, that tenant is paying down your mortgage for you. And then 2, if it appreciates, you get a huge multiplier effect. Did you know this? That when you put a 20% down payment on a house, what actually ends up happening is you get a 5x multiplier on the return on your equity, on that appreciation. Because, say for example, you bought a property for $100,000, that's a $20,000 down payment. Now, if that property appreciates even just 10%, that's $10,000, that's not 10% return on your money, because that $20,000 to make $10,000 means you made 5 times that. You made 50%. So that's why when people say like, wait, how do you make so much money in real estate? Easy. I leverage the bank's money so I can make a lot more money with less. So that's why it's one of my favorite investments, to make not just passive income, that of course, whenever they re-up their lease, I get an increase of income each year, which helps me fight inflation. But then 2, when there's appreciation, even if there's no appreciation because they paid on my mortgage for me, but either way, when you have that happening, I get more and more equity in that property. And eventually, guess what happens here? Down the road, I could sell off that property because maybe I have so much equity, I might say, if I sell this off, I can make more money. Ooh, by the way, can I give you a little bonus here? I had one client who actually had $700,000 of equity in his property in California. He was making only $200 a month off of it. His whole goal, he just wanted to pay off the mortgage because he was listening to Dave Ramsey too dang much. He said, I just want to pay off the mortgage and then I'll make $2,400 a month. Yes, you could do that, make $2,400 a month in 6 years before you pay it off. Or you can sell that property, do a tax-free exchange into new properties out east where it's cheaper, and you could be making easily $70,000 a year with that same money. He said, I don't know. I really love this property. And I was like, wow, you really do love that property. Like $200 a month versus $6,000 a month. You don't think that's a easy choice? It apparently wasn't. It took him 2 years to make that decision. But guess what happened? 5 years later now, 2 years after that, he decided he'd finally sell the property. Got the equity out, bought a bunch of properties in Louisiana. Well, now he just reached out to me recently. He bought his 8th property, and he's now over $100,000 a year with that same equity. Remember, it would have been next year before he finally paid off his mortgage, and he would have $2,400 a month. Now he's making over $8,000 a month with that same, almost $9,000 a month now with that same money. Guys, there's a huge amount of ways you can make passive income and not have to be the one doing all the work. All right, the next one are syndications. Very simply put, syndications are when investors pool their money together to buy a large project, like an apartment building, self-storage units. It could be a commercial building or office space. It could be a warehouse. It could be a car wash. The list goes on and on and on. It could be senior living, senior living facilities, like assisted living facilities and things like that. Whatever it might be, whatever the project is, you can pool your money together with other investors and have an ownership piece in that property. So if all the investors put together, say $10 million, and you put in $100,000, you got 1%. So if all the gains and everything, all the things that they make off of that property, you get paid that as well. Sometimes they'll even pay you a certain rate of return. They might even pay you, say, 6% or 8%, maybe even more. They just say, here's what we're going to pay you as a base in the meantime while you're waiting for the returns when we sell the property or refinance it later. So there's a lot of different ways you can make money on that, but the great thing with syndication is that you share in the profits together with the other investors. You get a piece of it. You don't have to have all the money to buy something large. You can have a piece of it with everybody else. It's kind of like what you're doing with mutual funds already, but the good news is you don't have to worry about all the weird ups and downs, right? Is there risk? Yes, there is. But at least now you're owning a real asset that cash flows. Okay, the third thing is private lending, right? You can lend your money. You could be the bank where you lend your money to other investors. You let them do the work. You lend your money to them. Of course, like I said, you got to have money in order to make money, especially if you want to do it very passively. If you don't have time and energy, you're using your money to do the work for you. Well, if you lend your money, you can now help set the terms. Now, they might ask for certain terms, but there's nothing wrong with negotiating. For example, I have one friend that he tells everybody publicly it's 10%. He'll pay them 10% a year contractually, which is a great rate of return. Well, I got him to agree to 11% for my clients. I said, you know what? We're going to want more than that. If you put 10%, nobody's want to do business with you. He's like, all right, fine. I'll do 11. Sometimes I'm like, 11's okay. But 12? 12 would be better. Then you get some attention. All right, I'll do 12. I'll do 12. Okay, great. Awesome. And then they do that investment and you get paid on that money. And you get paid whether it's monthly, it could be quarterly, or just at the end if it's a short-term deal. So for example, I had one client where he invested about $200,000 with one of these friends of mine. And that investment, it was supposed to be 8 months long. He got paid back in 5 months. So no, he didn't make 12%. He made just shy of that 6%, right? Because it was just less than half a year. But was he worried about that? No. Making 5% in 5 months, he was totally cool with that, right? And in fact, he was so happy with that, he even went and lended that money out again to that same investor to do it again and to do a different project. And so you can lend money and you can set the terms like any bank. You could say, nope, there has to be this much equity. There have to have 25, 35, 50% equity or I won't do the deal. Great, you determine that. If they don't meet your terms, great, you find somebody else to do it. There are plenty of opportunities, especially right now where banks are not lending as much and they're charging more for whatever they are lending. So this is a great time right now to be able to lend. In fact, this might be one of my favorite investments currently. All right, the next one is oil and gas. Did you know you can actually get paid more, even if you have to pay more at the gas pump, you can actually get paid on your money as well. Oil and gas, now that's a very speculative, high-risk place to be depending on where you're investing. I do not ever invest in things like drilling projects where they're speculating, they're hoping to find oil. I don't like that kind of stuff as much. I like it where they've already found the oil's already there, they just have to drill it. They just have to get out of the ground. That's where I like to invest and help them buy wells and things like that to start drilling and make that production happen. And when you do that, you own the land. So you buy the land, and then the oil companies are essentially paying you rent for that land, and they'll pay you in the form of royalties. They'll pay you on a percentage on whatever they're pulling out of the earth, whether it's oil, whether it's natural gas, whatever it might be, you're getting paid on that money coming out. And so that could be a great way to make money, and there's even some tax advantages. Much like with rental real estate where there's some tax breaks too, there's some tax breaks when it deals with oil and gas. And so that's another one that's kind of a fun one that a lot of people don't realize you could actually be doing that's still real estate backed, but not fully real estate. And then the last one's real estate partnerships. And this is probably my favorite right now. Although I said lending is awesome, one thing I'm doing that kind of has a lending element, but it's a partnership, is I decided to partner with some guys that were really good at buying and selling raw land. I saw the opportunity. I kept telling them, hey, if you guys ever have a passive opportunity for me, I want it. Well, years later, it came up. We created a partnership. I'm a 70% owner. They're 30%. And what did I do? I financed it. I paid the capital in. So I put in total about $250,000 up front. And then I started reinvesting all the cash flow. So we're not pulling any cash out of it. We're just taking the cash flow and reinvesting it. This has been going on for 2.5 years now. What's amazing is that we're now, as of the recording of this video, it could be more than that by the time you even watch this, but as a recording, we're now over $11,400 a month on this project. What are we doing? Because it's not just buying dirt, right? We're buying this raw land that we turn around and we sell for a higher price. So for example, one of the recent transactions, there's a smaller one, like we've paid $1,700 and then turned around and sold it for $2,500. Now, we're not gonna get super rich off that, especially because it was like a 12-month loan at 0% interest, but still, you make a few hundred extra bucks off of that, still make about a 20% return in a year off of that one little transaction, right? Again, results may vary, no guarantees, right? On top of that, there was another one we did for $25,000 that it cost us, but we sold for $74,000, and they're paying us 10% interest over the next 15 years. So we're getting paid over $800 a month, roughly $10,000 a year off that $25,000 initial investment. That's a 40% rate of return on that money that we used to buy that property. So even with all the business costs and stuff we did up front to get this going, still that roughly a little over $400,000 that we've invested into this business now is kicking off over $11,000 a month. Guys, that's right now we're already about, that would be closer to about $135,000 or so a year, right? That's awesome, right? I mean, that's amazing. And so there are just, again, so many different ways. And there's even partnerships, things like I said, with franchises. You can get into a car wash business that also could be high income potential. Is there risk? Of course. And so again, that's why I always come back to is where is their value? Like where's their actual value to back it up? Real estate, in my opinion, is one of the safest places they can be because it tends to go down a lot less, but make a lot more on the upside. So I know there's a whole lot more ways you can make money in real estate investing and do that for passive income. Here's what I'm gonna say for this, is that if you wanna figure out how to invest in real estate to create passive income, I would go to moneyripples.com, which is our website, not just because it's our website, but because we got a passive income calculator there. If you're kind of curious to say, hey, my financial situation, how much passive income could I actually be making with my money that's there right now? This is a great way to find out without you having to ask me the question personally, because there's a lot of you. So just go to that passive income calculator, fill that out, and you'll actually get a number that will tell you how much you could be creating in your situation. So be sure to check that out right now.